Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. I've already done the weekend forecast, of course. As always on a Saturday we have a look at where the week ahead. But this video is for CFS 6 months look at, and we would normally do this on a Sunday, but of course we've started our winter updates now. So tomorrow it'll be the third winter update here on the website. So CFS 6 months look at has been shunted off to Saturday today for this update. So we're going to have a look at weather the next 6 months from the CFS B2, the forecast charts. Now, just say this is really just for fun. The charts are there, we might as well use them, but please don't take it too seriously. There is an important side, so I'd have a little bit of fun with these 6 month look at videos, but the important aspect is that it's not to be taken too seriously, certainly not beyond sort of 2 or 3 months away. So we're going to go up to March with this update. As I say, because the charts are there, so let's have a look at them. But just take it with a pinch of salt. And if it's not quite what you are hoping for the winter and into next spring, well, don't worry too much, that's all I'll say. Right, before I get on with that, just very quickly to mention the ads. There's links to articles on all the pages at gasloads.com. You can have a browse widget and click through the links. You'll be helping to pay for the website, and thanks so much for doing that. So, just say the link to the CFS B2 website is on the links page, so if you want to see these charts yourself, you're more than able to do that. Just go to the links page and then click through, and you'll be able to check it out for yourself. Right, let's get on with it then, and we're going to start off with 700 millibar height anomalies for the next 6 months, and then we'll have a look at the corresponding temperature and the corresponding precipitation charts. So starting off in October, that's the month up there, as always with height anomalies, blue extrapolates to low pressure, and yellow, orange, red, those are colours extrapolate to high pressure. So what we see for October is I've got a trough of low pressure in the Atlantic. We've got some sort of ridging out to the northeast, up over Scandinavia, over here. But it's the trough that is in control for us on this particular update. So what we see the jet stream coming in there. It's an unsettled month being signalled for October. Probably not a desperately wet month, probably not a washout of a month, but it is an unsettled month with the Atlantic sort of driving in some rain bands and probably some wind and wet and windy conditions as well. As I say, it's not a washout of a month because that trough isn't all that deep, it's not centred over us, but it's the Atlantic that's driving things on that particular update. Now things deteriorate much more as we go through into November. This is a proper wet and windy month. If this comes up, I'm going to have to change the highlighted colour actually for this one, because we've got a very, very deep trough of low pressure indicated by these deep blue colours out in the Atlantic. The jet stream coming right through the country like that as well. So it's wet, it's windy, it's wild. There'd be some pretty wet and stormy conditions going on with that one. Now we've got this ridge down to the south around the Azores, and that's going off into Spain as well. So it really is a classic zonal month being signalled here with the ridging all around here, the trough up here, and well, it's just Atlantic driving weather systems in. There's no northern blocking, there's no high pressure over Scandinavia. It's just wet and windy, bit of an onslaught coming up for November if it turns out like that. December's not much better. That trough isn't quite as deep, and it's more centred to the north of Scotland. So, if anything, the ridge and the jet stream is probably being pushed a bit further northwards, actually. Maybe because this ridge is strengthening here from the Azores into Spain. But it's still a very Atlantic-driven month being signalled by the CFS B2. This would be very mild. It would be a mild start to winter. Some bands of rain come across the country, but the south will get the driest weather, the north will get wet weather. And of course, it could be stormy at times with that sort of setup, but it is December after all. And maybe quite a big temperature contrast between cold air up here and warm air down here. So I certainly wouldn't rule out stormy conditions, but I don't think it's quite as wet, windy and wild as we see for November. Nevertheless, it's another very mild month. But we are going to month 4 now for January, and we're going a long way out. So really just in the realm of speculation, it's just in the realm of just for fun. But the basic gist of the idea is that the pattern continues really for January. So still below average heights, low pressure to the northwest of Scotland, still this ridging here through central parts of Europe. So it's more of the same, really. The jet stream is probably going a bit like that, coming through the country. Most of the conditions again in the northwest, driest conditions in the south and the southeast, and it's going to be, if it comes off, pretty mild as well, because everything is lining up to be bringing the air in off the Atlantic in that sort of direction. So if you're hoping for a cold start to winter anyway, not such good news on this particular CFS 6 months look ahead. Now, as we go through to February, we do see signs of a change. What's happening in February is that the ridge is strengthening around Newfoundland and to the south of Greenland. That's Greenland up here. I should get rid of that and probably do a G. So we've got Greenland up here. To the south of it, we've got heights, high pressure strengthening around Newfoundland and to the south of Greenland as well. Now, it's still got this annoying ridge through central parts of Europe, but it is going more towards the east of Europe, actually. And this trough is becoming a little bit more centred over Scandinavia. If we look over this side of the chart, we see Scandinavia better and Western Russia as well. So the trough is going up there. What could be happening is that we could be very gradually moving towards a colder pattern. It really depends how these troughs interact. It's such a long way off, you can't be stumped by this at all. It's month 5, but if that low pressure becomes centred over Scandinavia, if the trough becomes centred over Scandinavia, then we could start to open the door to colder air from the north and the northwest. And that really goes on in towards March, which probably holds out the best prospect of something cold and wintry. That trough is really in over Scandinavia and to the east of the UK. Again, the ridge is strong around the south of Greenland and Newfoundland as well. That high pressure is probably going down towards North Africa, the above average heights there. I think that would be opening the door to northerly influences as we go through into March. There may even be some little hints of northern blocking here across the polar field, although that could be a little bit clutching at straws, really. But I think we are seeing signals here that as we go through the winter, we probably transition to something cold, and that will go along with an El Nino winter. You tend to expect the coldest weather to be at the end of the winter rather than at the start of it. Not always, of course, there'll always be deviations, but on average, the coldest conditions usually in El Nino winter come later on. So, it's not great by any means. This chart won't be delivering sort of severe, sustained cold, I don't think. But it does get better if you want cold weather as we run along. Right, let's have a look at the temperature anomalies that go with this. And for October, we're near normal with the temperatures. The warmth is really just restricted up over Scandinavia. But we're driving the jet stream in across the country, of course, through October. So you expect near normal temperatures really with an Atlantic-driven month in October. Look at this though, let's go through to November. It becomes a bit of a horror show if you want cold weather. Virtually the whole of Europe is locked into significantly warmer than average weather. The reason that's happening again, the jet stream driving in that sort of a fashion with high pressure down here and low pressure up here and up there as well. It's a pretty stormy month. Remember, we said there could be severe gales, heavy bouts of rain, maybe even flooding. Wouldn't rule that out for November. In terms of the actual anomaly, we're probably, we're still above average, but we're probably cooler in this far western part of Europe compared to most parts which are in those red curves. But it is an Atlantic-driven, milder than average month. That goes on into December as well, so these temperature anomalies are a bit of a horror show if you want cold weather, such as the start of winter. It's hard to believe that the whole of Europe, from Ireland and Portugal out here to Russia over there, would be seeing temperature anomalies of 1 to 3 Celsius above average, but of course in a very Atlantic driven month that can happen. It probably would have happened for example, in January 2014, we had all that flooding. So you never know with these things, and I wouldn't entirely be ruling out that this could come off. But it's 3 months away, so it's going to be extended part of CFS V2. And it just goes on into January, so this is a pretty grim update again if you want a cold winter, not just for UK, but any part of Europe, really looking significantly milder than average. Remember, these are anomalies, so even over Scandinavia, an anomaly of around 2 degrees above average is still going to be very cold, of course, for Norway and for Finland and for Sweden. There'll still be quite a bit of snow around, but it's an anomaly, and it is a pretty impressive one to be seeing so much of Europe looking so warm to start 2016. Just goes on really into February, although we are seeing some signs here of cooling things down a bit in terms of the anomalies across Scandinavia, UK and Ireland as well. We're averaging closer to the seasonal norms. That probably implies that some sort of transition is taking place to something a little bit colder for February. And then for March, very interestingly, all of those warm anomalies are really shoved off to the East Europe. And March, although it's only showing average temperatures here across Scandinavia and the UK, France, Germany, Low Countries, or those sort of near normal temperature anomalies, March by far, quite obviously, holds the best prospect out of these 6 months for something a little bit colder and wintry. And of course, remember the reason that's happening is that we're centering the trough in there by this point. We're building a lot of ridging around here, and that's probably sending the flow into something like that. It's 6 months away, but it's the best we've got if you want cold weather. Of course, not everybody likes cold weather, and I have to be fair. I was accused by somebody the other day of sort of favouring cold weather, so let's hear it for mild weather. If you want mild weather, then this is a great update for you, and I don't want to be too biased about looking for cold conditions. Some people are looking for milder weather, and yeah, if you want a mild winter, keep your fingers crossed this comes off. Right, let's just have a look at precipitation before I go. October is near normal, but hinting of being a bit wetter than average through the west. Again, it makes sense. There's a trough of low pressure in the Atlantic, and it is an Atlantic-driven month with jet stream going in, something like that. Things go much wetter as we move through into November, and the reason is because the trough has deepened in the Atlantic. It becomes quite stormy, I think, probably for November. Gales could be driving in, and certainly a lot of heavy rain as well. Remember, the jet stream just blasting through the country into most parts of Europe, rather like that. So it's a proper wet and windy, possibly stormy month for November. December, wetter than average as well, so it's a wet end to 2015 if this comes off. Remember, we've got to keep in mind that there is a cold pool in the Atlantic. It's significantly cooler than average in this part of the Northern Atlantic Ocean. So maybe the CFS V2 isn't quite factoring in the effect that westerlies driving in over that colder than average water could have. Actually, could it turn out to be quite a bit cooler with these westerlies than this model is indicating, even though it would still come out above average because there'd be a lack of frost really, because it's so windy and maybe so many rain bands came through that you would limit the frost. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't get some wintry potential with these westerlies coming in over the cooler Atlantic Ocean. Anyway, very wet month indicated not just for UK but for most parts of Europe as we go through into December, giving us a proper wet end to 2016. It stays wetter than average really through most of Europe going through into January. And that goes on into February, but there is that change for February with the wettest conditions really becoming more favoured across France and central parts of Europe. Notice the UK is actually reverting to near normal rainfall away from the south. It is interesting that the south is a little bit wetter than average. Could be indicative of the jet stream going further south. But really it's the northwest of Europe that is turning a little bit drier. Could be indicative of high pressure forming, and overall I think the signal is probably to start shifting the jet stream southwards, although it doesn't really show up in the temperature anomalies all that well. I think February could hold out some colder prospects, and that goes on then into March, and in fact by March you've even got a little bit of red appearing across parts of Norway, indicating perhaps some high pressure getting in over Scandinavia. Again, the jet stream going down into central parts of Europe now, so as we get through to the last part of winter, jet stream tracks further southwards, which starts to allow ridging to build in the Atlantic. It's still not great, but if you want colder weather, the latter stages of winter could be doing a little bit better. But remember, as I always say, with these 6 months look aheads, this one and the GEM, it's just for fun. Charts are there, so let's look at them, but not to be taken seriously, especially when you get through to those sort of months 4, 5, 6 away. So that's how it's looking for this month's update. It looks a pretty warm end to 2016, but also 2015, but also very wet, and a wet and mild start to 2016. Things may progress colder as we go through into the latter stages of winter. That's a very long way ahead. And we'll have a look at many more seasonal models actually next Sunday, not tomorrow, but a week tomorrow. Have a look at many more seasonal models to see what they're showing in the first winter 15-16 seasonal model roundup. Well, that's it. I've gone on for too long, so it's time for me to go. Come back tomorrow for the third winter update. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching.